Hi, my name is Haley Earls. I'm going to be talking about my final lesson design in this video. So I know we all have the same target standards for this lesson, so I'm not going to mention those. But even though we all pretty much have the same learning targets, I'm sure, mine state that the students will read text closely, analyze the text to make logical inferences, construct verbal and written arguments, cite textual evidence when speaking and writing, critique the reasoning of others, and construct a written response to text. So for this lesson, my students are going to read the article entitled Pro-Con, Self-Driving Cars Are Just Around the Corner. Is it a good thing? So initially, I am going to provide scaffolding to my students by introducing the article in general, giving them the title, stating that this is an opinion piece, so they should pay specific attention to the author's point of view throughout. And I also am going to let them know that there are two authors that have written this piece. One author is writing for self-driving cars, so they're pro, and the other author is writing about the cons of self-driving cars. So obviously they need to be aware that this is an opinion piece, and for the lesson, I'm going to be looking for them to critique the author's reasoning throughout the piece. So we are going to first read the article as a class. We're going to popcorn read, so I'll start reading and I'll choose a student, and then everyone knows how popcorn reading works. Then I'm going to have the students reread the article on their own and annotate, so highlighting, writing in the margins, underlining, all of that good stuff that takes place during annotation. And the students will then be partaking in a second read of the text. And after the students have read and annotated the article, and they've read it twice, so they have a very good understanding of the piece in general, they will pair with a partner, they're just their shoulder partner who's sitting next to them, and they will verbally construct an argument based on the author's bias. So they need to identify bias within the article, explain the bias, state why it is biased, and the effect that the bias has on the article as a whole. And this will allow them to critique the author's reasoning within the article. So once that is complete, the students are going to revisit the text again by constructing a written response to basically the same thing they discussed with the partner. So they have an understanding of the reasoning they should be using within their written response. They're going to write pretty much what they talked about with their partner, critiquing the author's reasoning, and obviously stating the bias, giving examples, citing textual evidence as it asks them to do in the learning targets. And then they are going to, once they have those written, they're going to get into groups of 4, and they're just going to counterclockwise pass their responses around and edit each other's responses. That way they are able to critique each other's reasoning as well. So they're really utilizing the skill of critiquing reasoning through critiquing the author's bias in the article and critiquing the reasoning of others, providing constructive criticism, editing one another's papers, which will really immerse them in that skill. So in week 13, obviously I talked about that I will provide scaffolding to my students. Week 13, we talked about scaffolding, that it's a temporary support structure. I'm providing that by initially introducing the students to the work and reading it with them. In week 10, we talked about the role of rubrics. Obviously, we made a rubric for this, and it's clear that learning is best achieved if all of the students know what's expected of them, which is provided in a rubric. And finally, in week 6, we talked about formative assessment. So my formative assessment will take place just as I walk around the room and listen to discussion, see what the students are writing. Obviously, they'll turn in their writing at the end, which will act as a form of kind of summative assessment too, but I can formatively assess what they're talking about in writing as I just walk around and listen to that. And the work entitled Formative Assessment and Assessment for Learning states that It determines a current state of student learning and understanding. And that's my 5 minutes. Thanks, guys.